You are listening to the sleepy historian. Settle into your place. Let your breath slow. Let your thoughts drift like wood smoke curling through a thatched roof. There is no urgency here, no fanfare, only the quiet company of a life lived long ago, spoken softly, as one might murmur to a neighbor sharing the same cold hearth on a winter night. Tonight, you are lying on a straw pallet in a single-room cottage somewhere in rural England, France, or the Low Countries, sometime in the late 13th century. The year does not matter. The name of your village has been lost to time. You are not a knight. You are not a saint. You are not even remembered. And that is exactly why you are here. This is not a story of crowns or castles, of sieges or saints' relics. This is the history of the ordinary. The weight of a wool tunic still damp from yesterday's rain. The ache in your lower back after a day bending over furrows. The way your fingers stiffen before you've even left the house. You are here to experience, not as spectacle, but as sensation, the slow, unbroken rhythm of survival in a world without comfort. You may have come expecting drama, battles, plague, kings riding past with banners unfurled. But those are the stories of daylight. This is a story for the hours when the fire is low, when the children have stopped crying, when the only sound is the drip of meltwater from the thatch and the soft shuffle of a pig in the corner. You are not here to witness history. You are here to live it, one cold, ordinary hour at a time. And if you fall asleep while listening, if your breathing deepens, your shoulders soften, your mind slips away, that is perfectly all right. The story will not leave you. It has waited 700 years. It can wait a little longer. And if you wake again, you will find yourself still here, in the same dim room, with the same rough blanket, listening to the same quiet truth. Because survival, for most of human history, was not heroic. It was habitual. It was rising before dawn, even when your bones felt like stone. It was chewing coarse bread until your jaw ached, just to make it last. It was walking barefoot through frost because your shoes were still drying by the fire. You do not need to understand the politics of the manor to endure this night. You only need to be present, to feel the cold floor beneath your feet, to smell the damp wool and wood smoke, to hear the lowing of a cow in the byre, just beyond the shared wall. This is not fiction. This is what life was for more than 90% of people in medieval Europe. A cycle of labor, hunger, cold, and rest, repeated until it ended quietly in the same bed where it began. There will be no sudden noises, no shouting, no music swelling to a climax. Only the scrape of a spoon against a wooden bowl, the sigh of a tired body lowering onto straw, the slow tick of a log settling into embers. If this voice helps you rest, if the weight of this history feels like a blanket drawn gently over your thoughts, then a quiet like is welcome. Not a comment, not a share, just the knowledge that you were here, listening as the fire burned low and the night stretched on. Now, let your jaw unclench. Let your hands grow heavy. Breathe in and out. You are wearing a linen shift, rough against your skin. The thatch above you leaks slightly near the east wall. A pig roots softly in the straw behind the wattle partition. And outside, the first pale light is barely touching the frost on the fields. You are not important, but you are here. And for now, that is enough. You stir before the sun rises. Not because of an alarm, there are no clocks here, but because your body has learned the rhythm of survival. The cold wakes you first. Not the sharp bite of wind, but the slow, deep chill that seeps up from the earthen floor through the thin layer of straw into your bones. Your feet are numb. Your fingers curled against your chest feel stiff, as if wrapped in cloth dipped in ice water. You do not move at once. You never do. Movement costs warmth, and warmth is too precious to waste before the hearth is lit. So you lie still, listening. The cottage breathes around you. A pig snuffles in the byre behind the wattle and daub partition. A child murmurs in sleep, then falls silent. The thatch overhead drips once. Meltwater from last night's frost collecting in a roof leak, falling into a chipped pottery bowl you placed there yesterday. Plink. The sound is soft, but in the quiet, it echoes like a stone dropped in a well. You count your family by sound. Your eldest daughter breathes slow and deep, healthy. Your youngest whimpers slightly, teething, or hungry, or both. Your spouse shifts, pulling the shared blanket tighter. You are all here. For now. Outside, the world is still dark, but not black. A pale gray seeps under the doorframe, a sign that dawn is approaching, though the sun will not clear the eastern ridge for another hour. You know this without looking. You have measured your life by these subtle shifts for years. You sit up slowly. The straw crackles beneath you, releasing the sour-sweet smell of damp hay and sweat. Your joints protest, the ache in your lower back, the stiffness in your knees, but you do not sigh. Sighing wastes breath, and breath carries heat. You rise as quietly as you can, bare feet pressing into the cold earth floor. It is not frozen. Autumn still lingers, but it draws warmth from you immediately, like stones set in a stream. You move to the hearth. Embers glow faintly beneath a layer of ash. You kneel, careful not to stir the ash too much. Smoke is dangerous in a room with no proper chimney, only a hole in the thatch that draws poorly on still mornings. You blow gently, then add a sliver of dry kindling. Birch bark saved from summer, kept dry in a clay pot. A tiny flame licks upward. You feed it another splinter, then a small stick. Your breath comes in short puffs, visible in the cold air, vanishing as quickly as they form. This is your first task of the day, coaxing fire back to life. Not for comfort, not yet, but for water, for pottage, for the simple act of making the cottage livable. As the flame grows, you begin your morning ritual. First you wash, not with soap, too costly, but with a damp cloth kept near the fire overnight so it wouldn't freeze. You wipe your face, your neck, the backs of your hands. The water is cold, but not icy. You do not scrub. You clean only what must be cleaned. Your eyes, crusted with sleep, your mouth, tasting of yesterday's ale, your armpits, where lice gather. You check your scalp with your fingers, slow, methodical. You fine-tune it. You crush them between your nails. Lice are not shameful. They are expected. Everyone has them. Next, you dress. Your linen shift is still on, but damp with night sweat. You pull on a wool tunic over it, coarse, undyed, smelling faintly of sheep and smoke. It itches against your skin, but it holds heat. You wrap a woolen scarf around your neck, then pull on hose, wool tube for your legs, tied at the waist with a leather thong. Your shoes wait by the hearth. Leather, cracked at the seams, stiff with dried mud and frost. You flex them with your hands before pulling them on. They will soften as you walk. You do not look in a mirror. There is none. You smooth your tunic by feel, tuck in loose threads, check for holes. You find one at the elbow. You make a mental note. Mend it tonight if the light holds. Your hair is long, tied back with a strip of leather. You retie it, pulling gently to avoid tugging lice eggs loose. You do not care how you look. No one will see you today except your family, your neighbors in the next strip field, perhaps the reeve if he rides through. And they will not look closely. They are too busy enduring their own mourning. You check the children. Your youngest is awake now, eyes wide in the dim light, thumb in mouth. You lift her gently, cradling her against your chest to share warmth. She nestles in, silent. You carry her to the hearth, sitting on a low stool as the fire grows. The heat reaches your face first, dry, faint but real. You hold her closer. Her breath warms your collarbone. Outside, a rooster crows. Distant, half-hearted. It knows, as you do, that true morning is still far off. You do not pray aloud. Not yet. Prayer comes later, in the field, or at mealtime, or when the cough in your daughter's chest worsens. For now, you simply exist, present, attentive, preparing. Because the day will not wait. The fire must be fed. The water must be boiled. The fields will not plow themselves. And so you rise, not with purpose, not with hope, but with the quiet understanding that to stop is to perish. You are not special, but you are still here, and that means you must begin again. The fire is small, but it is alive. You feed it another stick, dry oak, split thin, saved from last week's gathering. It hisses as it catches, sending a wisp of smoke curling toward the hole in the thatch. The smoke does not rise cleanly. On still mornings like this, it eddies in the rafters, then drifts downward, stinging your eyes and throat. You do not cough. You blink slowly, letting the tears clear your vision. Smoke is a fact of life. Like lice, like hunger, like the ache in your lower back that never fully leaves. Now the pot. It is iron, blackened by years of use, hanging from a hook over the flames. You fill it with water from the clay jug by the door, water drawn yesterday from the village well, now cold and slightly cloudy. You do not boil it for purity. You boil it because cold water chills you from the inside, and you cannot afford that. Warmth, even in a sip of broth, is survival. Into the pot go the scraps of last night's meal, hardened bits of barley pottage, a few onion peels, the bone from yesterday's salt pork. You do not measure. You add what remains. Then a handful of dried peas from the sack in the corner. Only a handful. The sack is less than half full. Winter is coming, and you do not know how long the grain will last. You stir with a wooden spoon, worn smooth by use. The mixture is thin, tasteless, barely more than flavored water, but will fill bellies. And for now, that is enough. Your youngest daughter watches from your lap, eyes fixed on a pot. She knows what it means. Heat, sustenance, the beginning of the day. She does not ask for food. She is too young for words, but old enough to understand waiting. She rests her head against your chest and closes her eyes again, lulled by the soft crackle of the fire. The water takes time to warm. Not minutes, but hours. The fire is small, the pot thick, the room cold. You sit on your stool and do not rush. Rushing wastes energy. Energy is food. Food is scarce. While you wait, you check your hands. The skin is rough, split at the knuckles from washing in cold water, from handling straw, from gripping the plow handle. You rub a bit of tallow into the cracks. Mutton fat saved from the last joint. It stings, but it helps. You do not do this for comfort. You do it because broken skin invites rot, and rot invites fever, and fever invites the stillness that does not end. Your spouse rises now, moving quietly on the straw. They nod to you, no words needed, and go to the corner where the bread is stored. It is a dark loaf, dense with husks and ground acorns, baked 3 days ago, already going stale. They break off a piece and hand it to your eldest child, who sits up, rubbing sleep from their eyes. No one speaks. Words are saved for necessity. Fire low. Water ready. Pig's trough empty. Morning is a time of quiet preparation, not conversation. You have shared this silence for years. It is not emptiness. It is rhythm. The pot begins to simmer. Not a rolling boil, never that. Just a gentle bubble at the edges, enough to warm the pottage without wasting fuel. You lift the pot from the hook and set it on a flat stone beside the hearth to cool slightly. Too hot, and it will scald mouths. Too cold, and it will chill you. You must find a balance. Wooden bowls come out, 3 of them, chipped but serviceable. You ladle the pottage slowly, evenly. Not generous portions, but enough to quiet the hollow feeling in the belly. Your youngest gets the most broth, the least grain, easier to digest. Your spouse takes the bone to gnaw later. You take the smallest portion, not from sacrifice, but from habit. The one who tends a fire eats last. You eat with your fingers. Spoons are for stirring, not serving. The pottage is bland, gritty with barley husks, but warm. You chew slowly, not for enjoyment. You barely taste it, but to stretch the meal, to give your stomach time to register fullness. You sip from your bowl, letting the warmth travel down your throat and into your core. Your children drink from wooden mugs. Weak ale, brewed from barley, slightly sour. You do not give them water. The well is shallow, fed by runoff from the fields. Ale is safer. Even weak, it carries calories. Even sour, it does not carry rot. The meal lasts less than 10 minutes. Then the bowls are set aside to be rinsed later. Water is too precious to waste on cleaning until evening. You wrap the leftover bone in a cloth and hang it from a peg near the smoke. It will keep longer there. The fire needs tending again. You add another stick. Not too much. Fuel must last until dusk. You watch the flame grow, then settle. You shift your daughter in your lap. She is asleep again, her breathing slow and even. Outside, the gray light has brightened slightly. A crow calls from the oak at the field's edge. Somewhere, a door creaks open. A neighbor begins their own morning. You do not look up. You do not hurry. You finish your pottage. You warm your hands over the embers. You prepare to face the day, because the hearth is not a place of comfort. It is a place of necessity. And what it gives you, warm food time, is just enough to go on. You stand slowly, your daughter stirring but not waking as you shift her weight. You carry her to the pallet and lay her down, tucking the edge of the shared blanket around her shoulders. She curls onto her side, thumb finding her mouth again. You watch her for a moment, not with longing, but with assessment. Her breathing is even. Her skin is warm. She will last a day. Now, you dress fully. You're already wearing your linen shift and wool tunic, but the day demands more. Outside, the air is sharp, carrying the first true bite of late autumn. Frost still crusts the ground, and the wind, when it stirs, cuts through wool like a dull blade. You cannot afford to be cold. Cold slows you. Cold makes your hands clumsy, your thoughts slow, your steps hesitant. And hesitation costs grain. You pull on a second tunic, undyed, coarse, smelling of wood smoke and sheep. It is not clean. None of your clothes are ever truly clean, but it is dry, and dry is warmth. You layer it over the first, smoothing the wrinkles not for appearance, but to trap air between the fibers. Air is insulation. Insulation is life. Next, the cloak. It is wool, thick and heavy, dyed a dull brown with walnut shells last spring. The hem is frayed, the clasp, a simple iron brooch, bent from use. You fasten it at your shoulder, pulling the fabric tight across your chest. It will protect you from wind, from light rain, from the worst of the morning chill. You do not wear inside. Cloaks absorb smoke, and smoke clings to wool for days. But outside, it is necessary. Your hose are already on, but you check them. Damp at the ankles from yesterday's mud. You rub them gently with a dry cloth, then pull on leather shoes. They are stiff, as always, the soles thin from wear. You walk a few steps near the hearth, letting your body heat soften the leather. Blisters are a luxury you cannot afford. You tie your hair back again. During the night, the leather thong loosened. You gather the strands, brown, streaked with gray, tangled with bits of straw, and pull them into a tight knot at the base of your skull. You do not own a comb. You use your fingers, working slowly, patiently, removing tangles and the occasional louse. You crush it between your thumbnail and forefinger. No shame, no disgust, just routine. You check your face with your hands. Not for cleanliness. Your morning cloth already did what it could, but for signs of rot or rash. Your skin is rough, chapped at the cheeks from wind and cold, but unbroken. Good. Broken skin invites infection. Infection invites fever. Fever invites silence that does not end. You run your hands over your tunic, feeling for holes. You find one at the elbow, as you knew you would. You make a mental note. Tonight, by firelight, you will mend it with the bone needle and sinew thread kept in the clay pot by the bed. You do not carry the needle with you. Too easy to lose. Too precious to risk. Your belt is next, leather, worn thin at the buckle. You thread it through the loops on your hose, pulling it snug. Not tight enough to cut off circulation. That would make your legs numb, but tight enough to hold your knife and your flint. The knife is small, iron-bladed, used for cutting rope, trimming nails, slicing bread. The flint is for fire. Both are tied securely. To lose either is to lose a day's work. You do not wear jewelry. You own none. But you do have a small pouch at your waist, linen, stitched tight, holding three things. A dried mushroom for starting fires in damp weather. A twist of salt, precious, saved for meat or broth. And a smooth river stone given to you by your mother before she died. You do not believe it brings luck, but you keep it. Some habits are harder to break than others. You check your breath. Not for scent. No one will stand close enough to notice. But for moisture. If your breath frosts heavily, the day will be cold. Today it plumes faintly, vanishing quickly. Not the worst, but not mild. You look toward the door. It is still closed, the wooden bar in place against night creatures. Foxes, stray dogs, once a wolf long ago. You do not fear them now. Daylight keeps them away. But you check anyway. Habit. Your spouse is lacing their own shoes, their back to you. You do not speak. You do not need to. You know their routine as well as your own. They will check the pig's trough. You will check the water jug. They will take the east strip. You will take the west. You will meet at noon to share bread. You will return as the light fades. You pull your cloak tighter. You are ready, not armored, not adorned, not even particularly warm, but ready, dressed in layers that have been washed only by rain, mended only by necessity, worn until the wool shines with use. You look like your neighbors, like your parents, like everyone who has ever lived and died in this village without leaving a name. And that is as it should be, because you're not dressing for ceremony. You are dressing for endurance, for the slow walk to the fields, for the ache in your hands, for the cold that never fully leaves your bones. You lift the wooden bar from the door. You step outside. The morning air bites your cheeks. Your breath plumes white. The frost cracks under your shoes. And the day begins. You step outside, and the cold presses against you like a hand. Not violently, not with malice, but with quiet insistence, as if the air itself has been waiting for you to emerge so it can remind you of your place. Your cheeks tighten. Your nose stings. Your breath plumes white and vanishes almost at once, swallowed by the still, gray morning. The village is silent, not empty. Smoke rises from a dozen roofs, thin and hesitant, but quiet. No voices call. No children shriek. Even the dogs are still curled in doorways, conserving warmth. You are not the first to rise, but you are among the earliest. The others know, as you do, that daylight is short now, and every minute must be used. You walk. Your cottage stands at the edge of the village, near the common pasture. To reach your strip, you must cross the trampled mud of the lane, past the Reeves house, shuttered, no sign of life, skirt the edge of the Lord's fallow field, and then enter the open expanse of the open field system. The great communal farmland, divided into long, narrow strips, each assigned to a family, is half a mile, less if you cut through the hedgerow, but you do not. The path is safer, drier, and in the dim light, it is easy to misstep in the furrows or sink into a hidden mud pit. You keep to the track, your shoes crunching on frost-rimed earth. Each step is measured, not hurried, but steady. You do not waste energy on speed. The field will not grow faster because you arrive earlier, but you do not dawdle. Time is grain. Grain is life. Your hands are tucked into your armpits beneath your cloak, not for comfort, but to keep them warm enough to work. If your fingers stiffen before you reach the strip, you will lose hours chipping earth with numb hands. So you walk with your arms folded, your shoulders hunched, your eyes fixed on the path ahead. The world around you is muted. The trees are bare, their branches black against the pale sky. The stubble fields glow silver with frost. A crow perches on a fence post, watching you pass. It does not fly away. It knows you're no threat. You pass your neighbor's cottage. The door opens as you go by, and a man steps out, Edric from the next strip over. He nods. You nod back. No words are exchanged. There is nothing to say. You both know where you are going. You both know what awaits. You walk side by side for a few paces, then he turns toward his own strip, and you continue on. The land does not belong to you. Not truly. It belongs to the Lord of the manor, granted to you in exchange for labor, for seed, for a portion of your harvest. But the strip feels like yours. You have worked it for 20 years. You know its slopes, its stones, its patches of poor soil. You have wept over in drought. You have thanked it in plenty. And you have watched your father and your grandfather do the same before you. You reach the edge of the open fields. Here, the land stretches away in long, parallel furrows, some green with winter rye, others fallow, turned and resting. Your strip is bare, recently harvested, the stubble short and brittle. It lies third from the hedgerow, bordered by Edric's to the north and the Reeves' experimental plot to the south. There are no fences. Only furrows mark the boundaries. Deep, straight lines cut into the earth, filled now with frost. You step onto your land. The soil is hard underfoot, frozen just below the surface. You kneel and press your palm to it. Cold, but not solid. Good. If it were iron hard, you would not be able to turn it today. You would waste the light waiting for the sun to soften it. But this will yield slowly with effort. You unfasten your cloak and lay it on a flat stone at the edge of the strip. Not because you are warm, you are not, but because a cloak gets in the way of work. It catches on the plow handle. It soaks up sweat, then chills you when you stop. You fold it neatly, tucking the brooch inside, so it does not catch on anything. You place your pouch on top, knife, flint, salt, stone. You will not need them yet, but they must be safe. You stretch your back, rolling your shoulders slowly. The ache is already there, deep in your spine, left over from yesterday. It will worsen by noon. You accept it. Pain is not an emergency. It is a condition of life. You walk the length of your strip, nearly 200 yards, checking for signs of animal tracks, for flooding from last week's rain, for stones pushed to the surface by frost heave. You find a rabbit burrow near the hedgerow. You fill it with dirt. Rabbits eat seedlings. You cannot afford to lose even a few plants. Back at the near end, you check the tools. The wooden plow stands where you left it, leaning against a post. The iron coulter is dull but serviceable. The yoke for the ox is cracked but holding. The rope is frayed but strong enough. You run your hand along the handle, smooth from years of use, dark with sweat and oil. It fits your grip perfectly. You do not own much, but this plow is yours. The Lord provides the ox, but the plow is your responsibility. You do not begin yet. You stand for a moment, looking east. The sun has not risen fully. It lingers just below the ridge, but the sky is lightening, shifting from gray to pale gold. Soon, the frost will begin to melt. Soon, the earth will soften. You take a breath. You feel the cold fill your lungs. You let out slowly. Then you walk to the ox pen at the far corner of the field. The beast is already awake, chewing cud, its breath steaming in the cold. It is old, like you, but strong. You speak to it softly, not with affection, but with respect. Easy now, Boda. It turns its great head, eyes dark and calm. You check the harness. Adjust the yoke. Stroke its neck once. Not for comfort, for trust. Because today, as every day, you will not work alone. You will work with the land, with the animal, with the slow, unbroken rhythm of survival. And so you begin. You guide the ox to the head of your strip. Its hooves crack the frost as it walks, each step heavy and deliberate. You do not use a whip. You never have. You use your voice, low, steady, familiar, and the gentle pressure of a wooden goad against its shoulder. Hup, Boda. Easy now. The ox knows the command. It has heard it every morning for 7 years. It lowers its head, braces its legs, and waits. You fit the yoke, checking the knots, ensuring the harness sits evenly on its withers. You do not rush. A sore spot on the ox means slower work, and slower work means less turned earth before dusk. And less turned earth means poorer yield in spring. Everything connects. You take the plow handles in both hands. The wood is cold, worn smooth by years of grip. You settle your stance, feet shoulder width, knees slightly bent, back straight, but ready to lean. You do not begin with a pull. You begin with a breath. Then you say, walk on. The ox moves. The plow bites into the earth, not deeply, not yet, but enough to break the crust of frost. The coulter slices a thin line ahead, and the share lifts a narrow ribbon of soil, turning it over with a soft, wet sigh. You lean into the handles, guiding the blade straight, keeping the furrow even. Your arms tremble slightly, not from weakness, but from the constant tension of resistance. The soil is cold, compacted, reluctant. You walk backward as the ox moves forward, your eyes on the furrow, your body bent slightly at the waist. Your cloak is gone. Your tunic clings to your back with sweat, despite the cold. Your breath comes faster now, not from exertion alone, but from concentration. One misstep, one moment of distraction, and the furrow veers, the blade catches a stone. The day's work is wasted. The first pass is the hardest. The frost must be broken. The roots of last season's barley must be torn free. The earth must be reminded that it is not resting, it is preparing. You feel every inch of resistance in your shoulders, in your lower back, in the soles of your feet. Your hands grow slick inside your gloves. You shift your grip, not to ease the pain, but to find a new angle of leverage. Boda moves steadily, not fast, but consistent. You do not ask for speed. You ask for rhythm. And rhythm, once found, becomes its own kind of rest. After 50 yards, you stop. Not because you are tired, though you are, but because the ox must rest. You pat its neck, check for chafing, offer a handful of last night's straw from your pouch. It chews slowly, eyes half closed. You lean against the plow, letting your back straighten, your breath slow. Your heart pounds in your ears. You do not wipe your brow. Your sleeve is already damp. You look back at the furrow. It is straight, deep enough. The turned earth is dark, damp, already beginning to steam faintly as the sun climbs higher. Good. This will hold moisture in spring. This will welcome seed. You drink from your leather flask, water, slightly metallic from the lining, cold enough to make your teeth ache. You take 3 sips. No more. The well is half a mile back, and you will not make that trip twice in a day. You check the sky. The sun has cleared the ridge now, casting long, blue shadows across the field. The frost is melting fast near the hedgerow, but your strip is still shaded, still firm. You have 2 more hours of good turning before the soil softens too much and the furrows collapse. You return to the plow. Up, Boda. The ox steps forward. The blade sinks in. The earth parts. You fall back into rhythm. Step. Lean. Guide. Breathe. Step. Lean. Guide. Breathe. Your thoughts narrow to the furrow, to the feel of the handle, to the sound of the share cutting through root and stone. You do not think of your children, of your empty grain sack, of the cough that lingers in your daughter's chest. Those thoughts belong to evening, to the quiet hours by the fire when the work is done. Now, there is only the soil, only the turn. Your hands grow numb, then warm, then numb again. You shift your weight from foot to keep blood flowing. Your lower back aches with a deep, familiar throb that pulses in time with your heartbeat. You do not stop. Stopping invites stiffness. Stiffness invites cold. Cold invites error. At the end of the second pass, you find a stone. Not large, fist-sized, but enough to damage the coulter if left buried. You stop the ox, kneel, and dig it free with your bare hands. The earth is colder below the surface, wet and clinging. You toss the stone to the edge of the strip, where it joins dozens of others. A slow-growing cairn of obstacles removed, season after season. You stand, brush the dirt from your knees, and resume. The third pass is smoother. The earth is waking. The frost is gone from the top layer. The plow moves with less resistance. You adjust your stance slightly, letting the ox take more of the weight. You're not fighting the land. You're working with it, persuading it, reminding it of its purpose. A neighbor passes on the adjoining strip. You do not look up. He does not call out, but you hear his ox, the creak of his plow, the soft murmur of his voice. His presence is not company. It is confirmation. You are not alone in this labor. You are part of a pattern older than memory. The sun climbs higher. Shadows shorten. Your tunic is soaked through at the back. Your shoes are caked with mud. Your fingers are raw inside your gloves. And still, you turn the soil. Because this is not farming. This is survival. Each furrow a promise. Each stone removed a small victory. Each breath a refusal to stop. And so you walk. You lean. You guide. You turn the earth. One slow, deliberate furrow at a time. The sun is high now, not overhead, not in this season, but past its lowest arc, casting short, sharp shadows across the field. It is past mid-morning, though no bell has rung, no voice is called. Time is measured not in hours, but in furrows turned, in sweat dried and reformed, in the slow ache that has settled deep in your bones. You stop the ox at the end of the fifth pass, not because the work is done, it never is, but because your body demands a pause. Your lower back throbs with a dull, persistent ache that radiates into your hips. Your shoulders feel heavy, as if weighted with stones. Your hands, though gloved, are stiff and burning at the knuckles. You lean against the plow handle, letting your forehead rest briefly on your forearm. You do not close your eyes. Closing your eyes invites sleep, and sleep invites cold. You straighten slowly, rolling your shoulders back, stretching your spine one vertebra at a time. The movement sends a sharp twinge through your lower back, but it eases the stiffness. Good. You cannot afford to seize up before dusk. You walk to the edge of your strip and pick up your cloak. You do not put it on. You're still too warm from labor, but you wrap it around your shoulders loosely, letting the wool absorb the sweat on your tunic. Wet wool is dangerous later, but for now, it is management. You take another 3 sips from your flask. The water is warmer now, less bracing, but still welcome. You sit on the flat stone where you left your pouch. Not for long. 5 minutes, no more. But long enough to let your heart slow, to let your breath deepen, to remind your body that this pace is sustainable. You do not eat. Your bread waits for noon, when your spouse will meet you at the hedgerow with their own portion. Eating now would only make you sluggish, and sluggishness wastes light. You watch the ox. It stands with its head low, chewing slowly, eyes half closed. Steam rises from its flanks in the cold air. It is not resting. It never truly rests while harnessed, but it is steady. You check the yoke again. No chafing. Good. An injured ox means no plowing for a week. No plowing means poor seedbed. Poor seedbed means less barley. Less barley means hunger by late winter. You look across the field. Other strips show the same pattern. Dark furrows cutting through pale stubble. Oxen moving slowly, figures bent at the handles. No one speaks. No one waves. But you see the rhythm. Shared, silent, relentless. You're not alone in this weight. Every man and woman in the village carries their own version of it. The baker kneading dough before sunrise. The weaver's fingers raw from wool. The shepherd walking the flock through bracken and bog. Survival is not singular. It is communal, even in solitude. You rise. Your knees crack softly as you stand. You smooth your tunic, tuck your pouch back into your belt, and walk to the ox. Hop-boda. The beast lifts its head, ears flicking. It knows the tone. It knows the day is not done. You take the handles again. The 6th pass is slower. Not because the soil resists, you've broken the worst of it, but because your body is tiring. Your steps are shorter. Your grip less certain. You catch yourself swaying slightly at the hips, compensating for the ache in your back. You correct it. Not perfectly, but enough. Halfway down the strip, you stumble. Not badly. A root hidden beneath the furrow catches your toe, but enough to jolt you. You drop to one knee, catching yourself before the plow veers. Your palm sinks into the cold, wet earth. You stay there for a breath. 2. Not from injury, but from exhaustion. Your heart hammers. Your vision swims slightly at the edges. You blink, slow and deliberate, until it clears. You rise. Brush the mud from your knee. Adjust your grip. Walk on. The ox moves. You do not look back at the imperfect furrow. You cannot afford regret. You can only go forward. By the 7th pass, the sun has begun its slow descent. The light takes on a golden hue, long and slanted, casting your shadow far ahead of you. The frost is gone from the field now, replaced by a thin sheen of damp earth that clings to your shoes. Your tunic is dry in front, soaked in back. Your breath plumes steadily, a sign that your body is still producing heat, still fighting. You stop again at the end of the row. This time, you see your spouse approaching from the east. They carry a cloth bundle in one hand, their own cloak draped over their arm. Their face is drawn, their steps slow, but their eyes meet yours with quiet recognition. You do not smile. Smiling wastes energy, but you nod. They reach the hedgerow and sit on a root stump, unwrapping the bundle. 2 crusts of bread, a wedge of hard cheese, a small onion. No plates, no ceremony, just sustenance. You join them. You do not speak as you eat. You chew slowly, deliberately, making each bite last. The bread is stale, the cheese salty, the onion sharp enough to bring tears to your eyes. But it is food, and food is strength. Your spouse hands you a wooden mug. Weak ale. You drink half, hand it back. They drink the rest. You share without words because words are not needed. You have shared hunger before. You will share it again. You rest for 10 minutes. No more. The light is fading faster now. Shadows stretch long across the field. You check the sky. No clouds, no storm coming. Good. Rain would ruin the turned earth. Wash away the seedbed you've worked all day to prepare. You stand. Your spouse stands. You nod again. They return to their strip. You return to yours. The 8th pass is the hardest. Your body moves, but your mind drifts. You think of the fire at home, of the warmth of the straw pallet, of your daughter's quiet breathing. You catch yourself. You force your focus back to the furrow, to the handle, to the sound of the share cutting through earth. You do not finish the strip today. You know you won't. You will return tomorrow and the next day until the whole length is turned, harrowed, and ready for winter rye. But today you have done enough. As the sun dips below the western ridge, painting the sky in pale rose and gray, you unyoke Boda, lead him back to the pen, and cover the plow with a scrap of oilcloth to keep the dew off the wood. You pick up your cloak, your pouch, and begin to walk home. Your steps are heavier now. Your back aches with every stride. Your hands throb inside your gloves. But you walk steadily. You do not look back, because the weight of the day is not just in your body. It is in the knowledge that tomorrow you will do it again. And the day after that. And the day after that. Not for glory, not for reward, but because to stop is to vanish. And you're still here. So you walk, one foot, then the other, carrying the weight, as you always have. You return to the cottage as true dark begins to fall. Not the gentle dimming of summer evenings, when twilight lingers for hours, but the swift, decisive descent of late autumn. Daylight fading by 4 o'clock, night pressing in like a hell breath. You step inside, and the door closes behind you with a soft thud, sealing you in with the familiar smells: wood smoke, damp wool, sour milk, and the warm, animal scent of the pig in the byre. The fire is low. Your spouse has banked the embers, covered them with ash to keep them smoldering through the afternoon. You kneel and stir them gently with the poker, coaxing a few red eyes to glow in the gray. You add a single split log, thin, dry, saved from morning's kindling, and wait for the flame to catch. It does, slowly, reluctantly, as if as tired as you are. You do not remove your cloak at once. You stand near the hearth, letting the weak heat seep into your back, your shoulders, the damp patches on your tunic. Your shoes are caked with mud. You kneel to unlace them, your fingers stiff and slow. You place them by the fire to dry. Not too close, lest the leather crack, but close enough to lose the chill before morning. Your children are already inside. Your eldest sits on a stool near the hearth, carding wool with a pair of bone paddles. The rhythm is steady, practiced, scritch, scritch, scritch. Not perfect, some tough still tangled, but good enough. Your youngest sleeps on the pallet, curled against the wall, thumb in mouth, breath soft and even. You watch her for a long moment. Her chest rises, falls, rises again. Good. You wash your face with the last of the warm water in the basin, just enough to wipe away sweat and dirt, not enough to waste. The cloth is rough, the water tepid, but it feels like luxury against your wind-chapped skin. You dry with a scrap of linen, then hang it near the fire to dry for tomorrow. You eat. Not a meal, not yet, but a crust of the bread you saved from noon, softened in a mug of weak ale. You chew slowly, sitting on a low stool, your back to the wall. Your body aches in new places tonight. Your hips, your wrists, the base of your skull. You do not massage them. You simply let the pain sit, as you have learned to do. Pain is not an emergency. It is information. It tells you what you did today. It reminds you that you are still capable of labor. Your spouse stirs the pot. Water, a few more peas, a pinch of dried herbs from the rafters. Dinner will be thin, but warm. You do not expect more. You have not expected more in years. Outside, the world falls silent. No wind, no animals calling. Even the distant bark of a dog has ceased. The village holds its breath. You hear only the crackle of the fire, the scritch of the wool paddles, the soft drip of meltwater from the thatch into the bowl by the door. Plink, plink, like a slow heartbeat. You do not speak. There is nothing to say. The day is done. The strip is half-turned. The ox is fed. The children are safe. These are not achievements. They are requirements. You have met them. That is all. You watch the fire. Flames curl around the log, orange and gold against the black. Smoke drifts upward, then eddies back down, stinging your eyes. You blink slowly, letting the tears clear your vision. You do not move away. The smoke is part of the room, as much as the straw or the wattle walls. To avoid it is to avoid life. Your eldest finishes carding and lays the wool aside. They take a bone needle and a scrap of cloth and begin to stitch, mending a tear in their hose. Their fingers move slowly, carefully. You watch them, not to correct, but to confirm. They are learning. They will survive. You think of your own parents. Did they sit like this, in a cottage much like this one, watching their children learn to mend, to card, to endure? You do not remember their faces clearly. Time and fatigue have blurred them, but you remember their silence. The same quiet presence you now offer your own children. Survival is not taught in words. It is modeled in stillness. Your spouse ladles pottage into the bowls. You eat without speaking. The broth is thin, the peas soft, the herbs bitter, but it is warm. You sip slowly, letting the heat travel into your core. Your youngest stirs in her sleep, but does not wake. Your eldest eats quickly, efficiently, then returns to their mending. After the meal, you rinse the bowls with a splash of water from the jug, just enough to loosen the residue. You set them upside down on the stool to dry. Water is too precious to waste on cleanliness when survival is the priority. Now, there is nothing to do. No more labor. No more mending. No more walking. The night stretches ahead, long, dark, still. You sit by the fire, your hands resting on your knees, your eyes half closed. Your body begs for sleep, but your mind resists, not from anxiety, but from habit. Night is not for rest. Night is for listening. You listen to your children breathe. Your eldest, slow, steady, deep. Your youngest, quick, shallow, punctuated by soft sniffle. Your spouse, a low rumble in the chest, the sound of exhaustion wearing into peace. You count their breaths, not out of fear, but out of presence. As long as you can hear them, they are here. And as long as they are here, you must be ready. The fire dims again. You add one more sliver of wood, your last for the night. It is enough to keep the embers alive, to prevent the cottage from freezing solid. It is not enough for warmth. But you do not need warmth now. You need only to avoid cold that kills. You lie down on the pallet. Your body protests, aches flaring as you shift onto your side, but you do not adjust. Moving wastes heat. You pull the shared blanket over your shoulders, tuck your hands beneath your arms, and close your eyes. The cottage settles around you. The pig snuffles in the byre. The thatch drips once. The fire sighs. And in the stillness of early dark, you wait, not for morning, not for rescue, but for the simple, quiet proof that you made it through one more day. You wake before dawn again, but this time it is not the cold that stirs you. It is the hollow feeling beneath your ribs. Not sharp, not cramping, but persistent. A quiet, insistent emptiness that has been growing for weeks, since the harvest was counted and the tithe paid to the Lord, the seed grain set aside, the winter stores sealed in clay jars, and buried in the cool earth beneath the floor. You lie still, listening to the silence of the cottage, feeling the absence in your belly like a stone. You know the numbers. The grain sack in the corner, once full to the brim with barley, rye, and a little wheat, now sags at the sides. You measure it last night by touch, your fingers pressing into the fabric, feeling how little resistance it offers. Less than half remains, and winter has only just begun. You rise quietly, so as not to wake the children. Your body is stiff, your back tighter than yesterday, your hands still tender. But you move slowly, deliberately, conserving what little energy you have. Hunger is not new. It is a companion you have learned to walk beside, not fight. You go to the grain sack. It sits in the driest corner of the cottage, elevated on a stone slab to keep it from damp and rats. You untie the leather thong and reach in. The grains are cool, dry, smelling faintly of earth and summer sun. You scoop a double handful into a wooden bowl. Enough for today's bread, no more. You do not measure with scales. You measure by need, by memory, by the weight in your palm. You carry the bowl to the cornstone. It is a simple device, 2 flat stones, one fixed, one handheld. You kneel on the straw, the cold floor pressing through your hose, and begin to grind. The motion is circular, steady, using your whole arm, your shoulder, your core. The barley crunches between the stones, slowly yielding into coarse flour. It takes time. 2 hours for enough to make one loaf. You do not rush. Rushing wastes grain, kernels flung from the stone, dust lost to the air. And every kernel counts. Your arms ache within minutes. Your wrist burns, but you keep turning. Round and round and round. Your eldest wakes and watches from the pallet. You do not speak. You nod toward the fire. They rise, wrap their cloak around their shoulders, and begin to coax the embers back to life. Good. They are learning the rhythm. Hunger demands labor, and labor demands warmth. As you grind, you think of the bread. It will be dense, dark, full of husks and grit. Not the fine white loaves eaten in the manor house, but something rougher, harder, more honest. You will mix the flour with water, a pinch of salt if the pouch still holds any, and a spoonful of sourdough starter kept alive in a clay pot by the hearth. You will knead on a wooden board until your arms tremble. You will let it rise near the fire, just enough to swell slightly, not enough to waste fuel on a true oven. Then you will bake it on a flat stone beside the flames, turning it often so it does not burn. It will feed you. It will not satisfy you, but it will keep you alive. You finish grinding and pour the flour into a mixing bowl. Your hands are dusted gray with powder, your nails rimmed with bran. You wipe them on your tunic, then check the fire. Your eldest has coaxed a small flame. Good. They hand you the water jug. You pour just enough to make a thick paste. Too much, and the bread will be gummy. Too little, and it will crumble. You stir with your fingers, feeling the texture, adjusting by instinct. You do not eat while you work. Not even a scrap. Not even a pinch of flour. To taste now is to weaken your resolve, to remind your body of what it lacks. You save your hunger. You carry it like a tool. It sharpens your focus. It reminds you why you grind, why you knead, why you watch the bread like a hawk near the fire. The children eat first when the bread is ready. Not because they are precious, though they are, but because they are fragile. Their bodies have less reserve. Their coughs deepen faster. Their fevers rise higher. You break the loaf into 4 uneven pieces, giving the largest to your youngest, the next to your eldest, the third to your spouse. You take the smallest, the heel, burnt at one edge, densest with husks. You eat slowly, not savoring. There's little to savor, but stretching. You chew each mouthful 20 times, 30 if you can bear it, letting saliva soften the coarse grains, letting your stomach register fullness before the bread is gone. You sip weak ale between bites to wash it down. The bread tastes of smoke, of earth, of effort. Your youngest finishes quickly and looks to you with wide eyes. You shake your head gently. No more. They look down but do not cry. They have learned. Hunger is not injustice. It is arithmetic. After the meal, you wash the bowl with a damp cloth, careful not to lose a single crumb. You return the grain sack to its stone, tie it tightly, and place a heavy pot on top to deter mice. You check the clay jars buried in the floor, peas, beans, a little salt pork, all still sealed, all still holding. You sit by the fire and rest your hands on your knees. The hollow feeling is quieter now, but not gone. It never truly leaves this time of year. It sits in your belly like a guest who will not depart, reminding you with every breath that survival is not abundance. It is management. It is knowing how little you can live on and making that little last. You watch your children. They are full enough to be calm, to cardwool, to whisper to each other in low voices. That is success. Not joy, not comfort, but stability. Because in this cottage, hunger is not an emergency. It is a condition, and you have learned to live inside it. The cold does not arrive all at once. It seeps, first in the edges of the room, the corners near the door, the spot beneath the thatch where the wind finds its way through. Then deeper, into the walls themselves, into the straw underfoot, into the very air you breathe. By mid-December, the cold is no longer outside. It lives inside the cottage with you. You feel it in the morning before you even rise. Your breath plumes thickly in the dark, hanging in the air like smoke. The straw beneath you is stiff with frost. Your tunic, hung near the fire the night before, is still damp, damp with sweat, damp with condensation, damp with the cold that never truly leaves. You rise slowly, your joints creaking like old timber. Your hands are numb before they even touch the floor. You pull your cloak around your shoulders before you stand. Not for warmth, it offers little now, but for the illusion of it, for the weight against your chest that says, you are still here. The fire is difficult to light. The kindling is damp. The embers from last night have gone cold. You strike your flint again and again, blowing gently on the tinder until your lungs ache. Finally, a spark catches. You feed it with trembling fingers, adding the driest bark you can find. The flame grows, small, fragile, but alive. You do not warm yourself first. You check the children. Your eldest sleeps deeply, curled on their side. Your youngest lies still, too still. You kneel and place a hand on their chest. Beneath the rough wool of their shift, you feel it. Slow, shallow, but there. Their skin is cool, not cold. Good. You tuck the blanket tighter around their shoulders and sit back on your heels. Your spouse stirs. The pig's breath is frosted. They say, voice rough with sleep. You nod. You saw it last night. The animal's snout white with ice, its body pressed close to the wattle wall for warmth. Even the pig feels it. The cold has settled into the bones of the world. You melt snow for water. Not from the well. The bucket froze solid 2 nights ago, but from a sack of clean snow kept in the driest corner. You place it in the iron pot and set it over the fire. It takes hours to melt. You sit nearby, hands clasped between your knees, watching the ice turn to slush, then to water. You do not rush. Rushing wastes fuel. Fuel is warmth. Warmth is life. The day passes in small tasks. Mending a tear in your cloak with sinew thread. Carding the last of the summer wool into rough yarn. Checking the grain sack. Lighter again, though you took only a handful. Stirring the pot of thin pottage. Adding a single dried pea for flavor. Each movement is slower than it was a month ago. Not from laziness, but from conservation. Every step, every lift, every breath costs calories. And calories are scarce. Your hands crack at the knuckles. Your lips chap. Your eyes water constantly from the smoke that pools in the room, unable to rise through the thatch in the still, heavy air. You do not complain. You wipe your eyes with your sleeve and keep working. At dusk, your youngest begins to cough. Not the usual sniffle, but a deep, wet sound that rattles in their chest. You lift them onto your lap and hold them close, letting your body heat warm their back. They lean into you, eyes half closed, too tired to cry. You hum softly, a wordless tune your own mother once hummed, but you do not offer extra bread. You cannot afford it. Your spouse watches from across the hearth. Their face is drawn. They know what the cough means. You both do. You feed the fire one last log, thin, dry, your last for the night. It is not enough to warm the room, but enough to keep the worst of the cold at bay. You pull the children close on the pallet, your spouse on one side, your youngest in the middle, your eldest on the other. You share body heat not out of affection, but necessity. Survival is a collective act. The night is long. You lie awake, listening to the cough, to the wind that finally stirs outside, to the slow drip of meltwater from the thatch. Plink, plink, like a timer counting down. You think of last winter, of the child 2 cottages down who did not wake after a cough like this, of the silence that followed, of the small, wrapped bundle carried out in spring when the ground thawed enough to dig. You do not pray aloud. You do not bargain. You simply hold your child tighter and breathe slowly, evenly, as if your breath might fill their lungs for them. Morning comes. Gray, silent, bitter. You stir first. Your body aches in new places from cold, from tension, from the weight of the night. You check your youngest. Their eyes are closed. Their mouth is slightly open. Their chest does not rise. You do not cry. You do not call out. You smooth their hair back from their forehead. You tuck the blanket under their chin. You sit with them for a long time, not moving, not speaking, just being present in the stillness. Then you rise. You stoke the fire. You grind the grain. You boil the snow, because the cold settles in, and some do not wake again. But you do, and that means the day must go on. The days remain short, but they are lengthening. Not by much, only a few minutes each morning, a sliver more of gray light before true dawn. But you notice. You have learned to measure time not by clocks, but by subtle shifts. The angle of sunlight through the smoke hole, the depth of frost on the well bucket, the sound of water beneath the ice in the stream beyond the hedgerow. Today, the ice cracks. You hear it as you draw water, or try to. The well bucket, lowered on its rope, strikes not solid ice, but slush. You wait. You listen. A faint plink echoes up from the depths. Not the hollow thud of frozen stone, but the soft knock of water. You pull the bucket slowly, hand over hand, and when it rises, it is half filled with cold, clear liquid. No ice clinging to its sides. This is the first true sign. You carry the bucket back to the cottage, your breath pluming in the pale morning air. The frost on the path still crunches underfoot, but it is thinner near the stream bank. You pause there on your way, just for a moment, and look. The brook is still mostly frozen, its surface a mosaic of gray and white ice. But at the center, where the current runs strongest, a narrow black thread of open water gleams in the low sun. Steam rises from it, faint, ghostly, a sign that the air, though still bitter, is no longer holding the world in iron. You do not speak of it at breakfast. Not yet. Hope is dangerous when stores are low and the cough still lingers in your eldest chest. But you note it. You file it away, like a seed saved for planting. Inside the cottage, you begin the slow work of preparation. Not for spring, not yet, but for the possibility of it. You take down the scythe from its peg near the rafters. The blade is dull, nicked from last harvest, but sound. You run your thumb along the edge, then set it on the stool by the fire. You will sharpen it tonight when the light holds long enough to see the whetstone's grit. You check the wooden handles of your hoe and spade, dry, uncracked, ready. You oil the hinges on the seed chest buried in the floor, ensuring they will not stick when the time comes. These are not acts of optimism. They are acts of readiness. In a world where survival is measured in ounces of grain and hours of firewood, readiness is the only form of hope you can afford. Your eldest watches you as you work. They say nothing, but their eyes follow your hands. They see you sharpening the bone needle, reinforcing the leather on your shoes, checking the sinew thread for rot. They are learning. They understand that survival is not a single act, but a series of small preparations strung together across seasons. Outside, a crow calls, not the cautious, half-hearted caw of deep winter, but a full-throated cry that echoes across the bare fields. You look up from your work. The bird perches on the oak at the field's edge, wings slightly spread, as if testing the air. You watch it for a long moment. It does not fly south. It stays. And that, too, is a sign. You walk to the strip after midday meal just to look. The furrows you turn in autumn are still frozen, but the frost on the surface glistens differently in the low sun. Less brittle, more reflective. You kneel and press your palm to the earth. Cold, yes, but not dead. Beneath the crust, the soil holds a faint dampness, a memory of liquid. You do not plow. Not yet. But you walk the length of your strip, checking for animal tracks, none. For flooding, none. For stones pushed up by frost heave, 2. You kick them to the edge. You stand at the far end and look east. The sun is higher now than it was a month ago. Its light is still weak, still pale gold rather than white, but it carries a different quality, a hint of promise, not in warmth, but in duration. You feel it on your face, faint but undeniable, like a hand you had forgotten was there. You return home as dusk approaches, not in haste, but with the slow certainty of a day that has been well spent. You feed the fire. You grind a small measure of grain, just enough for one loaf. You check the children. Your eldest cough is quieter tonight. They eat their portion without prompting. Good. After supper, you sharpen the scythe. The whetstone sings softly as you draw the blade across it. Long, even strokes, each one smoothing a nick, each one preparing for the green shoots that may or may not come. Your spouse cards will by the fire, their movements rhythmic, calm. No one speaks. No one needs to. You think of your parents, of your grandparents, of all those who lived and died in this same cycle, planting in hope, harvesting in fatigue, waiting through winter in silence. You do not expect to be remembered. You do not expect rescue. You expect only to be ready, because the thaw does not announce itself with fanfare. It whispers, And those who survive are the ones who learn to listen. So you watch, you prepare, you wait, not for spring itself, but for the first undeniable proof that the earth has not forgotten how to wake. There is no grand work to be done. Not yet. The fields are still too cold for sowing. The days too short for full labor. The stores too low for anything but the most essential movement. And so, you fill the hours with small things, tasks that do not feed you directly, but keep you ready for the day when the earth softens and the seeds must go in. You card wool, not because you need new cloth immediately. Your tunics are worn, but mended, but because idle hands grow stiff and stiff hands cannot plow. You sit by the hearth, the bone paddles in your hands, drawing the coarse fibers into alignment. Scritch, scritch, scritch. The rhythm is hypnotic, almost meditative. It does not require thought, only presence. And presence is what you have. Your eldest works beside you, spinning the carded wool onto a drop spindle. Their fingers are slower than yours, less practiced, but steady. You do not correct them. You let them find the tension themselves, the point where the thread holds without snapping, where the twist is even without being tight. This is how skill is passed. Not in words, but in shared silence, in the imitation of motion. After the wool, you mend shoes. Your leather soles are thin, cracked at the ball from months of walking on frozen earth. You pull out the sinew thread, stronger than flax, more durable than wool, and you're bone all. You work slowly, punching holes just ahead of the stitch, pulling the thread taut, but not tight. Too tight, and the leather will tear when it flexes. Too loose, and mud will seep in. You know the balance by feel, by years of trial. Your spouse oils the harness for the ox. Not because Boda needs it today, resting in the pen, chewing cud, but because dry leather cracks and cracked harness means lost days in the field. They rub mutton tallow into the straps with slow, deliberate strokes, working it into every seam. The smell is sharp, animal, familiar. It fills the cottage, mingling with wood smoke and damp straw. You check the seed chest. It sits buried in the floor, sealed with clay to keep out moisture and mice. You scrape away the dried mud, lift the wooden lid, and peer inside. The barley seeds are dry, dark whole. No mold, no rot. Good. You run your fingers through them, feeling their weight, their density. Each one is a promise. Each one is a gamble. You close the chest, reseal it with fresh clay, and cover it with straw. You sharpen knives. Not just your eating knife, but the small blade used for cutting rope, trimming wicks, slicing herbs. You draw the edge across a smooth river stone, wet with spit, until it can catch a hair. You do not test it on your thumb. You know by sound, the high, clean whisper of true sharpness. You teach your eldest to tie knots. Not the simple overhand they've used for years, but the fisherman's bend, the clove hitch, the bowline that holds under tension but releases with a pull. You use a length of old rope, frayed but strong, and guide their fingers through each loop, each tuck. They fumble at first. You do not sigh. You show them again, and again, until their hands remember what their mind has not yet learned. These tasks have no urgency, no deadline, no audience, but they matter, because survival is not won in moments of crisis. It is built in the quiet hours between, hour after hour, day after day, season after season, through the repetition of small, necessary acts, through the refusal to let tools rot, to let skills fade, to let readiness slip. Your hands move without hurry. Your breath stays even. Your mind drifts, then returns. You think of nothing grand, no dreams of better land, no fantasies of escape, only the feel of wool between your fingers, the smell of leather and tallow, the sound of your child's quiet breathing as they concentrate on the rope. Outside, the light lingers longer. You notice it as you hang the mended shoes by the fire to dry. The sky still holds a pale gold glow well past the time it used to go dark. Shadows stretch, but they do not swallow the world whole. There is time now, real time, to finish a task before night falls. Your youngest brings you a smooth stone they found near the stream. You take it, turn it in your palm. Cold, wet, gray with a white vein running through it. You do not ask what it's for. You place it on the shelf with the others. The ones your children have brought over the years, for no reason other than to give. You will keep it, not for luck, not for memory, but because to refuse it would be to refuse their small offering of connection. You go to bed earlier than in deep winter, but not from fatigue alone, from contentment. The day has been full, not with drama, not with danger, but with purpose, with the quiet certainty that you are still preparing, still tending, still ready. You lie on the pallet, your body aching in familiar places, your hands calloused and stiff. You pull the blanket over your shoulders. Your eldest sleeps beside you, their breathing slow and even. Your spouse stirs the embers one last time before lying down. The fire crackles softly. The thatch drips once. The pig snuffles in the byre. And in the rhythm of small tasks, you find not hope, but continuity, not salvation, but the quiet dignity of going on. You do not think of yourself as a survivor, not in the way others might imagine, standing triumphant over hardship, arms raised in defiance, eyes blazing with hard-won wisdom. There is no triumph here, no defiance, only the quiet, unbroken repetition of what must be done. Survival, for you, is not a moment. It is not a story. It is a habit. It is rising before light because your body knows the cost of lying still too long. It is measuring grain by palm width because the sack grows lighter each week. It is mending the same tunic for the third winter because cloth is too precious to replace. You do not keep tally of your endurance. You do not mark days on a wall beyond what is needed to track seed cycles or holy feasts. You do not look back and say, I have lasted this long. You only look forward and ask, what must be done today? And today, as every day, the answer is simple. Prepare, endure, continue. You walk to the strip again, though the earth is still too cold to sow. You do not plow. You walk. You check the furrows for erosion from last week's meltwater. You kick loose stones to the edge. You test the soil with your fingers, still firm, but less brittle. You do this not because it changes anything immediately, but because it reminds you of your place. You are here. You are tending. You are ready. Your hands know the work even when your mind drifts. They card wool without your full attention. They stitch tears without counting stitches. They grind grain with a rhythm so deep it lives in your bones. This is not skill alone. It is habit, worn smooth by repetition as a river stone is shaped by water. You do not think about how to tie your shoes. You do not pause to recall how to coax fire from embers. Your body remembers, and your body is your most faithful companion. You do not speak of legacy. You do not wonder if your name will be remembered, because you know it will not. No one records the lives of those who card wool, mend shoes, turn soil, and watch their children sleep. And that is as it should be. Legacy belongs to lords and saints. You belong to the earth, to the cycle, to the quiet continuity of ordinary life. Your children learn the same habits. They rise without being called. They eat without complaint. They card wool with clumsy fingers that grow steadier each day. They do not ask, why must we do this? They do not need to. They see you do it. They see your spouse do it. They understand, in their bones, that this is how life is lived. There will be no monument to you, no song, no stone with your name carved in it. But your daughter will one day card wool by a fire of her own, her hands moving with the same rhythm you taught her. Your son, if you have one, will check the harness on an ox with the same quiet care. And in that you live on, not in memory, but in motion, in habit. You do not fight the world. You move with it. You bend with the wind. You store grain when there is plenty. You tighten your belt when there is not. You do not rage against the cold. You layer wool. You do not curse the short days. You light the fire earlier. You do not mourn the child lost to cough. You hold the ones who remain closer. This is not resignation. It is adaptation. It is the quiet intelligence of those who understand that survival is not about winning, but about lasting. At dusk, you stand at the door of your cottage and look east. The sky holds light longer now. The frost on the path cracks more easily underfoot. The pig in the byre roots with more energy. These are not miracles. They are signs, and you read them not with hope, but with readiness. You go inside. You feed the fire. You stir the pot. You check your children. You do not pray for spring. You prepare for it. Because survival is not a victory shouted from a hilltop. It is a hand placed gently on a child's forehead in the dark. It is a stone kicked from a furrow. It is a stitch pulled tight in a worn tunic. It is showing up day after day, not because you believe the world will reward you, but because stopping is not an option. And so you continue, not as a hero, not as a martyr, but as a person who knows the weight of a grain sack, the feel of cold earth, the sound of a child's breath in the night. You are not remembered, but you are here, and for now, that is enough. You have come to the end of this night's journey. The fire in the cottage has burned low once more. The ox rests in the pen. The children sleep, their breathing slow, and even in the cold, straw-scented air. Outside, the world holds its breath between winter and spring. No longer frozen solid, not yet awakened, but waiting in that quiet space where change is felt before it is seen. And you are still listening. That means you have walked these fields with us. You have felt the ache in your back from turning frozen earth. You have measured grain by the handful, knowing it must last. You have sat in the stillness of early dark, listening to your children breathe, counting each rise of their chests as a small victory. You have done all this not as a spectator, but as a quiet participant in a life that asked for everything and gave back only the barest necessities, and yet was lived fully day after ordinary day. This story was never meant to inspire you. It was meant to accompany you. In a world that shouts for your attention, with bright lights, loud voices, promises of transformation, this history offers something quieter: presence. The presence of those who endured not through heroism, but through routine, who survived not by escaping hardship, but by weaving it into the fabric of daily life. You may have drifted in and out during these hours. Perhaps your eyes closed. Perhaps your thoughts wandered to your own day, your own worries, your own quiet struggles. That was always allowed. The story did not leave you. It waited, as it has waited for centuries, in the creak of a wooden beam, in the hiss of snow melting over a flame, in the slow turn of a cornstone. And if you woke again, you found yourself still here, on the same straw pallet, in the same cold cottage, surrounded by the same unbroken rhythm of ordinary survival. Now, as we close, let your breath deepen. Let your shoulders soften. Let the weight of this history settle around you like a well-worn blanket. Because you are not in that cottage. You are not grinding grain with stiff hands. You are not rationing bread or listening for a child's cough in the dark. You are safe, wherever you are, in your bed, on your couch, in a room lit by electric light and warmed by invisible heat. You are held by comforts those villagers could not imagine. Clean water at the turn of a tap. Food that does not depend on the yield of a single strip of land. Medicine that can quiet a cough before it deepens into silence. Do not feel guilt for this comfort. Feel gratitude. And from that gratitude, rest. Rest without urgency. Rest without the need to be productive, to achieve, to become. Rest in the knowledge that for this moment, you are not fighting just to stay alive. This is the quiet gift of history told slowly. It does not demand your energy. It offers its own. It says, you are not alone in your weariness. Others have carried heavier loads with less support, and still found the strength to rise one more morning. The men and women of medieval villages were not saints. They were not heroes. They were simply people, like you, who faced long nights, short rations, and uncertain futures, and chose, again and again, to do the next small thing. To light the fire, to mend the shoe, to card the wool, to walk to the strip. And in doing so, they built a kind of dignity that does not need monuments to be real. Now, as you prepare to sleep, or to return to your day, carry this with you. Stillness is not failure. Repetition is not meaningless. And endurance, in its quietest form, is worthy of respect. The sleepy historian does not say goodbye, only good night. And if you seek another long evening of quiet history, if you wish to walk another frozen road, tend another hearth, watch another dawn rise over a world that does not hurry, you will find the same voice waiting. Calm, steady, unhurried, Because history does not rush, and neither do we. Now let your eyelids grow heavy. Let the last echoes of creaking timber and crackling flame fade into the rhythm of your own breath. You are warm. You are safe. You are home. Sleep well.